Welcome to the Passing Through Podcast, a show dedicated to exploring those spaces not just within, but also between and around us. The cracks in the walls, the moments between the moments, the silence that stitches a song together. This isn't a podcast about answers or about fixing the world. It's a space for listening, for slowing down and sitting in the unknown to see what might surface in the stillness. I'm coming to you live from the Sickhouse. You may hear it in my voice. It may sound raspy or weak or congested or all of the above because it is. This is going to be a largely unedited podcast, and it's not going to be the episode that you were intended to receive this week because I've been sick. So the edits that you will hear are me cutting out the wild and loud bouts of coughing that will likely happen as I speak into the microphone. And I figured I would dedicate this episode to sickness. I'm going to tell you about how I got sick, what sickness feels like, and what I've learned about it. I was in close proximity to my partner Asha's brother, who had just come down with something. We didn't know what it was, but he was coughing, he was pale, he seemed feverish and weak. Snot and green and yellow waterfalls of liquid were oozing from the holes on his face. He was coughing like a cartoon character, and I suspected I might wind up getting sick because we were in a car with him driving for 4 hours. We were in a small apartment with him for days. We were watching movies. We were eating together. So it was only a matter of time before I was claimed. And so last night, after we were watching the movie Begonia, which I recommend, a little bit on the gruesome side, gratuitously gruesome at times, but still a fun and strange and surreal movie like Yorgos Lanthimos' films usually are. And while we were watching that movie, towards the end of the movie, I began feeling delirious. The film itself produces a sort of delirium in the viewer, but what I was feeling seemed a little bit more physical. And so I had been coughing already at this point, but now the coughs had become cartoonish, like Asha's brother. And I felt feverish, I felt tired, I felt the aching in my bones. I don't know if you've ever had that experience where you develop a newfound intimacy with the bones in your body, where you could feel new contours of pain. And so I felt this deep aching. I felt as though I had inhaled a cloud of pulverized glass, fine glass microfibers just slicing through my lungs. My respiratory system was raw and irritated and swollen. And every time I coughed, it felt terrible, like burning acid. And so I took some cough syrup, which was against my better judgment, because in the past, when I've taken cough syrup, it generally has the effect that it prevents coughing, but it causes terrible heartburn and digestive discomfort. And this happened last night. So instead of going to bed and getting some rest, I spent the first few hours tossing and turning and sitting upright in bed to try to get the burning to subside. And when I finally did fall asleep, I don't know if you've had this experience, but you're laying in bed, you're sick, you're feeling weak, you have a fever, you're shivering, your whole body is convulsing. You know it's warm under the blanket, but for some reason you cannot get warm. I put a hat on. I'm laying there wrapped around Asha, thick blankets on top of me, pajamas. The heat is on, and I'm just shivering. I finally fall asleep, and the quality of the dreams that I had reminded me of times in the past when I've been sick, and I'd forgotten them. And this is part of the thing I wanted to say is that sickness offers a weird insight into an altered state of consciousness. The you who you are when you're sick is not the you who you are when you're not sick. So anyone who's listening to this, who is feeling able-bodied, you're not coughing, you don't have any sinus congestion, you're not battling a cold or a flu or COVID or whatever multitude of viruses there can be waiting to gain entry into your organism. When you feel healthy, you are in a different state of consciousness than when your body is somehow alien. And that's how I feel right now. My body is not my normal body. It feels less capable, it feels more frail and fragile. It doesn't know how to deal with temperature. And it's weird. It's a strange place to be, to feel not at home in your body. And this got me to thinking that, yeah, sickness is relational. Sickness is relational. When it happens, you are feeling sick. You know, we say, I feel sick, but literally you do. You are feeling sickness. You're in relationship with a new way of being where your normal organism, effectively, you have rented out your organism and you have a tenant now. And so you are navigating a new reality. You are experiencing your consciousness and its consciousness because there is a living assemblage of bacteria or viral matter propagating inside of you. It's basically a fuck fest inside of you where these germs are having a body-wide orgy, and it affects you systemically. You feel fatigue, you feel fever, you feel congestion. All of that ooze that you're coughing up, that phlegm and that snot that's dripping out of your nose, that's demon semen. That's viral ejaculate just oozing out of your body. So I've been sitting with this and realizing this. My pounding headache, my sore throat. And the thing is, this morning I took a test to see what I might have. They have these 5-in-1 combo tests now that you could take. And they will tell you whether you have different types of flu, SARS, COVID. I don't even know what the different tests are on the box. I threw it out already. Apparently I have none of those 5. So I have a more exotic infection. Or I just haven't built up enough of the antibodies in my system. I'm getting some nauseous burps now. The nausea is starting to surge and swell because I've been talking too much. So I'm probably going to cut this episode short here. I just wanted to give you something so that you know where I'm coming from and what's going on. I had hoped to record an episode about van life, and hopefully that can come next week or the week after, because I realized I never did a dedicated episode into this. And after living in a van for the past 2 years, I do have some insights that could probably be useful to people who are thinking of making that leap. So that's what I had planned to talk about this time. I don't have a script or things that I wanted to speak about. I am going to have to postpone that until some future date. But I didn't want to push out nothing this week. I wanted to at least let you know that I'm here. I'm thinking of you. I am hoping to be back to my normal power and health. Not that I was particularly powerful. In fact, I generally feel, maybe because of living in a van, I've grown weaker. Certainly my posture has been affected. A self-induced scoliosis as I hunch over, because we can't stand up in the van. I could barely even sit up in the van. My head touches the top of the ceiling. So this definitely must have some sort of health consequences, especially since when we were in Portugal last year, it was particularly rainy. There was like a stretch where it just rained for weeks and we were sleeping in the van and we didn't realize it, but slowly, accretiously, there was this buildup of black mold, which, if you don't know, is a fairly toxic substance. So we were sleeping with mold, and yeah, these kind of things happen when you're in a van, and you don't think about that when you see the really romanticized, glamorous, Instagram perfect depiction of what van life is. So yeah, maybe I can dispel some myths in a future episode, but for now, stay tuned for more on that topic next time. What else can I say about sickness, nausea, headaches, body aches, fevers? I guess just gratitude is another thing I'd want to say, that if you're not sick right now, it's easy to take that for granted because you're just functioning normally, in quotation marks, right? That's your default way of perceiving and experiencing the world. So when all is going well, we take that for granted. So I'm appreciating now the fact that I feel like shit, and hopefully I will return to feeling baseline in a few days. But yeah, being infected by a virus is a strange thing. It's sort of like tripping, right? It is an altered state of consciousness. It's a non-ordinary state for sure. And your whole perception of the world is radically altered. I don't have an appetite. I have been sleeping all day. I don't have the same kind of zest or interest in things that I normally would. Reading, writing, even recording this episode. It requires more effort than normal. But yeah, I think that's it for me this time. So be good to one another, and I'll talk to you next time.